Welcome to No Budget. And today we got a couple very special guests, Kevin Pontuti and Lexi Loreth. Did I say that right, Lexi? Sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
good. Just
thank
making sure.
you.
And they made a really lovely film called The Yellow Wallpaper that we are going to quiz the hell out of them about. So thanks for taking the time to meet with us all the way from California.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome to the show. So before we start talking about the Yellow Wallpaper, maybe we can delve into your background a little bit. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Okay.
How did you get into filmmaking?
It started off in kind of more of the fine art world. I was at studio art, painting, drawing, sculpture, kind of what I studied in school, and got into filmmaking a lot later. And it was one of those things where I think when I was younger and in school, I just really didn't know or think that it was a possibility. Coming from a small kind of Midwest Ohio upbringing, it wasn't something that there was a pathway for. So kind of got later on, I kind of came to realize that that's kind of what I wanted to do. And once I kind of got started, it's kind of now, I don't know, no turning back.
Yeah, and I guess, when I met Kevin, he had just finished a script and I wasn't involved in film at all. I liked watching movies, but it wasn't like a thing in my life, especially like it is now. And Kevin wanted to do some proof of concept photo shoots and shorts, and I just kind of was the only one willing to help him at the time. That's not true, but we got started, and then like Kevin said, then since then it's just been something we've done and haven't really stopped doing.
So what's it like working together?
We actually work together really well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if
That's not what I was going to say.
I think it's a lot of fun, and like with the Yellow Wallpaper, I don't know if I could have done a role like that if I wasn't working with like Kevin as the director, and I don't know if I would have been able to do something so vulnerable and emotional if it wasn't with Kevin. And I think on projects we do kind of shift into our roles for the film, and so it's nice that even in that way we work together really well too. So yeah, it's nice.
Alrighty. So I met you a few years ago at the Solaris Film Festival in Nice. I'll give that a plug. And at that festival I saw Honore, and since then I've seen Venita, I think it's called. Now, the one thing those two films have in common is that there's zero dialogue in them. So would it be fair to say that you see film as more of a visual medium for you?
I think I started off there, initially, and in some ways it was kind of probably what I knew, as coming from a visual arts background, and but then I've always been really interested in sound as well. So I think that there was a understanding of like the value of sound and the importance of it, and sometimes the absence of sound. So yeah, I think I like dialogue though too, and there's a lot of voice work in Yellow Wallpaper. So I think that's I definitely think they're integrated, but I think it might have been just initially where I kind of came at it from, and those those early films.
Mm. And I saw like an interview the both of you gave, and Lexi, you were saying that for you, the Yellow Wallpaper was the first time you actually had to speak. Is that right?
I had done a few little things with dialogue, but
Okay.
I mean, I guess my first project with Kevin that I had, and it's funny because there's not that much dialogue in the Yellow Wallpaper, but it's so much more than we're used to doing in our projects. So that was kind of an interesting new thing for me. And doing the voiceover, I'd never done voiceover before, so yeah, it was a little new in a way.
All right. So and with your shorts and indeed the Yellow Wallpaper, you seem to have a particular leaning towards exploring the dark side of life or the human experience. What do you think draws you to that?
A way of getting it out. There's I don't know. I mean, I think that there's I've always been interested in like horror, dark fiction. It was never. I think back to like reading Stephen King as a kid. Like, that was one of the things that, when I think about like some of the early books that I read, and I just got kind of hooked on that. And so I think there's that. And then, but I do think there is a fascination with that side of things and how it, just kind of relates to contemporary culture and how it relates to, some of the, we get drawn, I think, to some of those stories, and then we just kind of go for it. So, yeah.
Okay. So that brings us on to the Yellow Wallpaper. Why the Yellow Wallpaper? What made you choose that as a adaptation?
Well, I read the story in school, and like almost 10 years ago now. And I loved the story. I think I read it at a time in my life that it was really impactful and meaningful to me. And it's such a good story. The imagery has just stuck with me, all this time. Even there's a, big chunk of time that I hadn't read it. And when we were looking for a new project to do, it kind of popped into my head. And I locked Kevin in the office, told him to read it, not to come out until he was done. And I think he was immediately on board because, like I said, the imagery is so powerful in that short story. And I think it kind of worked well. Like you said, we do have a tendency to work on these kind of darker projects. And I think we both saw a way that we could tell this story in like this dark, interesting, different way, because there are other adaptations, and we, after watching a few of those, we realized pretty quickly there was a way that we could do it that hadn't really been done before. And I think that's when we started getting really excited about it.
Right, very good. So before I hand you over to Claire now, I have one more question. What were the main challenges between going from making shorts to making a feature? How different was it?
What's not
I mean, there's the with doing shorts, you can often do them in a weekend or over a different kind of timeline. And with doing a feature, I'd done kind of more like a featurette once before that ended up being like a kind of a long short. But even that was something that we were able to kind of break up into chunks in different ways in terms of production. With this, we shot in 15 days and with no real breaks in there. And so getting into, that sort of sustained, race against the clock can really be something to adjust to, I think. And I think for us, as prepared as we thought we were, you can never be prepared enough. So, I think so that sustained energy level, I would say.
Yeah, it was exhausting. Like getting through a whole day, and then you get through this whole long day and you like finally get in bed and you're like, I have like 5 hours of sleep and then I have to do it all again tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. And I think it's like that, for me, the biggest difference was like that mental side of it, like just getting through the mental and physical exhaustion of it all. But we did it.
Well, that would have maybe helped your character, would it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I talk about it all the time. I was so exhausted, so anxious. I was kind of freaked out the whole entire time, and it worked perfectly for my character. Yeah. I didn't have to do any other acting methods. No yeah.
Thank you.
So you're both American, and it's an American short story, is it? It's an American early short story. So why did you choose to film in Ireland and Limerick in particular?
I think, we had been looking for like, the house and the interior, and we had done a lot of scouting in Northern California around here, which was where we, initially thought that we were going to do the filming. And one of our, we'd been, I'd spent some time in Ireland when I was in college. I was an exchange student there. And over the years, we had connected with, filmmakers at the Richard Harris Film Festival. Emerald Giant Productions. And, we were, having a conversation one point when we were over at the festival, and, I think we were talking about another project. And I remember like driving through the countryside and going like, man, that's kind of the house I'd like for Yellow Wallpaper. And so we started thinking that, like, well, what if we maybe just shot the exteriors to get that, because we knew gardens, we wanted like these beautiful lush gardens. And in the summer here, everything's dry and brown and, not lush at all. So we, thought about maybe going to, back to Wisconsin maybe, or to Iowa. And then we were like, well, let's talk to Emerald Giant, see what, possibilities they might have. And they found us some great locations. And then we just kind of were like, well, why not just do the whole thing over there, rather than trying to do half over there, half here. And so that became the genesis. And, we just loved working with the Irish, the friends we'd met through Richard Harris. And that's how, we had run into Cathal over there once, at Richard Harris. But yeah, it just seemed like a really great, opportunity. And it was also, we wanted to kind of try out this method of working, working internationally. And I think that was something that, like, helped us understand a lot better what, those challenges and opportunities might be.
And it's great because Ireland has so much really good, highly trained crew, and behind the scenes, and especially they're developing in the West and Limerick, like a big kind of film industry. But so it's and the house as well. It was so perfect. Is that like that, or did you make it up like that, or
the house,
was it preserved? Yeah.
It ended up being two different, a number of different locations that were kind of seamed together. The outside of the house was the outside of the house only. And then the insides were found at other locations around the area. So what you're seeing in the inside is not the inside of the gray house. And then
that's tricky of filmmaking,
Think about, like, to me, that's just like obvious, but it's glad that people bought it, right? I think that's one of the things when you start, the windows, do they match?
I actually genuinely thought it was the same house. I genuinely,
So that's great. So we were successful. And then we did some things. We did some things to the outside and post, like we added some chimneys and like a matte painting to add one of our visual effects artists is like the head of matte painting at DreamWorks, and we pulled in a couple favors from him to help us with a few things. So there was there was the little things here and there, but it just worked out just fabulously.
Yeah, because you definitely captured that era so well on screen. So how did you find the cast and crew for the Yellow Wallpaper?
I mean, pretty much it all, came with working with Emerald Giant. They, we worked with Rob on casting. We worked with, Sylvia and Zeb on locations, and, the crew was a mix. We brought some crew from the US, and we brought some, a big part of the cast. But we brought our DP, Sonia Tippin, from LA. She brought her first AD, our producer, Peter Galante, is art director that the Catholic you met before. Ed and Susan from Wisconsin. Ed's our sound mixer, but he was there doing more kind of digital tech work. So it's kind of it was really a nice mix of US Irish crew.
And say from the pre-production and getting everything ready, was that like a very long process altogether?
Well, yes and no. There was probably a year and a half from development through the script and through the fundraising, and it was a pretty quick ramp up in terms of getting everything pulled together. So there was a a lot of, there was kind of like start and stop a little bit through the, the early stages. But we knew we had to film that summer, because we kind of started the train rolling, and I teach at the university here, and so summers are my kind of window to be able to go and do projects like this. So we so it was pretty.
It felt really quick.
Yeah, and super long at the same time. It's kind of both of those things.
What about post? How long did you spend editing it then? Because you mentioned you had special. Sorry, Claire, because I'm curious that too. So in post, like how long? So if you shot it during the summer, did you hand it off to the editor and then kind of let them work the magic, or did you work with them like after when you were done with classes and that kind of process?
Well, Kevin edited it.
Oh, you edited it yourself?
Well, we kind of edited it.
Okay.
I helped a little. I don't know the tech stuff, but I can tell him what to do.
Tell him what looks good or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we, as soon as we got back, we started, organizing the footage and getting everything together. So there was about since we shot in July, we had August to kind of get things kind of organized, and then it was I basically just spent the next putting it together and working on it when I had time. And it was one of those things where, I don't know, we really felt like we wanted to do the editing on it based on, there was just some things that we wanted to kind of figure out and really enjoy, in a way, in a lot of cases, that's where a lot of the kind of film, really does kind of come together. And I don't know, I like being part of that process very much so. And we know how to do it. So, and
once the pandemic started, granted we had gotten partially through the editing, but at that point we were like, for a while we were like, well, maybe we'll get partially through the editing and then hand it off once we have it, pretty much set up the way that we know we want it. But then once the pandemic happened, we knew that there was going to be no way that we could be in the same room as an editor, and that was kind of a hindrance too. And that's when I think we realized, okay, we're finishing this off ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
It is the strangest yellow. It makes me think of all the yellow things I ever saw. Not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things. Like this smell. An awful yellow smell. But I'm used to it now.
We can't talk about the film Yellow Wallpaper without talking about the Yellow Wallpaper. So how did you find it? Was it described in the short story, or did you make it, or did you go to a DIY store and find it, or how did you source it?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time analyzing the story itself, and especially the parts describing the yellow wallpaper. We really took a lot of time to think about that and how we wanted to portray that. And we did a lot of research on the wallpaper, and Kevin and Peter Galante, our production designer, they found a wallpaper and kind of edited that and changed it and took some things out and added some things and kind of made it our own. And then
printed samples and samples and samples of different tones of yellow and densities of the pattern, and he's in Wisconsin, so we were sending printed rolls back and forth, and
we would just, it was during the summer, we would get this great light in the house through the trees, so we would tape it up onto the walls where we were getting different light coming in and see how the light affected it, take it outside different hours of the day, and just weeks of going through different versions of the wallpaper until we landed on the one we liked.
And you found that in the US and shipped it over, or you found it there? And
we actually made it ourselves. Like we we edited the designs, and then Peter printed the wallpaper out, roll after roll after roll on an inkjet printer, and then we took that over to Ireland with us.
Wow.
A lot of
Yeah.
wallpaper.
God, and because it's so important for this film, and when you had it on the wall, like, did you actually put it on the real walls of the house, or was there? How did you manage that, or was it on wood or something?
We you know, and that's one of the things, you know, because initially we had figured we were going to build a set, you know, probably here on campus. You know, and that was all our early idea, so that we could, you know, because she destroys the wallpaper, you know, and it becomes, you know, that's a big part of the story. And so when when Emerald Giant found us a room that we could use in Ireland, where we could actually put the paper up in this, you know, a room that was very unfinished, and there was no, and this is probably one of the big reasons we also ended up filming the interiors over there, is that they were able to find us a room that we could do whatever we wanted to in it, and not worry about, you know, the repercussions of leaving somebody's house, you know, with torn up wallpaper. So that was a you know, a godsend for sure.
Because obviously, I was just thinking, oh my God, did you use someone's house and then, you know, plaster the walls, and then have trouble taking it down? But you know, but
Gotta go.
oh yeah, bye. Sorry.
Thanks.
But did you how did you find, like, the funding, and was it you don't have to tell us exactly, but was it a big budget film, a small budget? Because it looks so terrific on screen, you know. How did you find, like, the funding side of it and the budget side of it?
I think there was, you know, we did some fundraising, you know, here in the US, crowdfunding. We pulled some, you know, personal money together. We had a couple of executive producers that put money in. But, you know, not nearly, we had a lot of sweat equity from a lot of different people that really added to, you know, the value of the film. And I think that's, you know, can't be understated enough. You know, many of us were working, you know, with obviously without fees, you know, and really, and so many people put so much time and energy in all phases that we were really able to, you know, really kind of exceed expectations for, you know, for the funding that we did receive. Yeah,
because it looks so terrific on screen, because those films, they can cost so much, especially with a period film, you know. And so what were the challenges then of making a period film? You know, you have to go and source stuff, and so what was your biggest challenges in that?
I mean, definitely all the sourcing cannot be underrated. I mean, that, you know, both the costumes that we made here in the States, and the, you know, the costumes that were, you know, that Emerald Giant found for us, you know, all of that huge, you know, big lifts on all parts. The flip side of that, you know, the other part of that is you know, is the actors kind of working together. And so, you know, we, you know, there's that, you know, capturing the, you know, the physical locations, and, you know, and making that look period is a huge thing. But then getting the actors to kind of live in that world, you know, potentially when they're coming from different places and countries, and trying to kind of, you know, land upon a, you know, like kind of a language. You know, we were never really trying to set the film in Ireland. You know, it was meant to be a, you know, a historic place that, you know, felt of the period. And so working with the actors to, you know, the Irish actors to kind of bring their language a little more this way, and you know, Lexi bringing hers a little bit this way, to kind of meet into this place that everybody's, you know, that feels right. I think that was a you know, yeah, that takes some work. And yeah, and then I think, you know, I got to give so much credit to our DP, Sonia, you know, because, you know, obviously there's things that she had to shoot around, you know, you know, there's telephone poles, and there's this, and she was just able to really, you know, light that room, and just bring out, you know, all the best parts of the things that were kind of put in front of her. and and then kind of hide the ones that that maybe were not, so that it's such a balance, when you kind of bringing, you build it, the actors act in it, and then somebody picks has that eye to kind of like make it all work together, and that was really fun, and just loved working with her. It's just such a great collaboration. We really it was just great.
Had you worked with her previously, or was this your first film with her?
This was the first film with, yeah.
Oh, but you found her in the US and brought her over. Like, how do you guys know her then?
We interviewed a ton of DPs, and one of the things that immediately she also comes from a painting and a fine art background, and so when we kind of we started having these conversations after she'd watched, I think, Onore and Vanita, and we just started having these conversations, and it just seemed such a natural fit, in the way we kind of were able to communicate, and that just stayed. I think immediately we were like, okay, this is it's got to be Sonia, and
they work so well together. It's hard to imagine working with anyone else now that we've found her.
No, it was really, really, really great, and so when we first had met, I think we had pretty much. I don't think that we knew for sure we were going to Ireland, when we first started the conversation, but I can't remember exactly. But then she got, she was really excited also for the opportunity to film over there. And so I think it's just like, these things that kind of came together, and, it was just great.
So jumping around, Kevin, you already mentioned kind of some of the lessons you learned from shooting a period film. What about you, Lexi, from this since you already mentioned you had kind of more of a speaking role, and this is a larger feature film, like what are some of the lessons from your end as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the biggest challenge for me. One of the biggest stressors for me was figuring out how I was going to do that. And the hardest part was the fact that because the rest of our crew was Irish, we didn't have really any rehearsal time. So a professor that Kevin works with, an acting professor, vocal coach, we had an hour maybe before I went to Ireland. He kind of just walked me through some things, and that helped tremendously, even though it was just very brief, very quick little lesson in how to get us all to kind of reach this middle point dialect wise. We kind of made something up, but that was probably the hardest part for me, because I mean, luckily I've never really done too much modern film work. I'm always telling Kevin, I'm like, I want the next movie, I want to wear a pair of jeans. I don't want to wear another robe or another cloak. I just want to wear some normal clothes. So it was kind of interesting. Some of it was really natural as far as what we are normally working on, and some was really new and having to figure that out. But definitely the period thing was the hardest, most intimidating part for me, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then since the majority of our audience is kind of like that low budget filmmaking audience, any advice that you guys could give to other, small filmmakers?
I think my biggest piece of advice is to find your people, find the people that you share your interests with, and make stuff together, and build that community. And there's so many ways to do that. I feel like we've met so many people from around the world. I mean, look at us here now, that I think none of what we've done would be possible if it weren't for so many people that helped us along the way and were willing to do it just because it was something that they were passionate about. And I think that's find your people, because there are definitely people out there who are willing to work together and collaborate and make something awesome,
Kevin, same answer? Or?
I mean, I think there's that, I think prep, prep. I can't say prep enough. And it's one of those things where, I feel like with our short films, I was able to, just prep, I had everything, storyboarded to the T, and I think when you move into the feature, there's, and we couldn't do the same kind of prep because we didn't know what our locations were going to be. And when we first got to Ireland, we were still scouting and still, bringing all that stuff together. So there wasn't nearly as much, it was a lot less prep than I was used to. In the sense, Sony and I were making up shot lists, like literally, that morning in between scenes, and I was re-storyboarding, on set, and so and some of that's just the way it goes, right? But I think that just always do as much prep as you can, and know that even if you use half of it, you're it makes the changes easier. In my mind, it's like if I know what I need, then when something changes where I have to adapt to it, I can do it easier, because I knew what I was after, very clearly, in the beginning.
Nice, good answers. And the film, obviously, it's not publicly available yet, but I'm assuming at some point some people are going to want to go see it. What's the plan for the film?
Well, right now we're looking for an Irish premiere, and we'd love for everybody in Ireland to be able to see it. There's so many people there that have reached out and that are interested. So we're looking at extending our festival run a bit. And we're getting, some, we're talking distributors right now and agents, and we'll continue to do that. So, but we're thinking probably, late summer, fall, it would be available a lot more widely. But, there's, some festivals we're looking at that we're hoping, fingers crossed for.
All right.
Yeah, there's a good festival called the Richard Harris Festival, actually.
Guy by the name of Rob and Zeb are involved in it.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. And then 2 questions left. What are you guys working on now or next? Can you tell us, or is it a secret?
Well, so I had mentioned when Kevin and I first met, he had just finished his script, and for a long time, we didn't know if that was going to be possible because it's a much bigger production. And after we did Yellow Wallpaper, I was like, you know what? I don't really want to make a movie for a while. I need a break. But then like a few weeks ago, Kevin's like, oh, I'm applying for this grant. I'm like, for what? And it's for his script, The Witch and the Burning Branches. So that's another
break time's over.
Piece.
Back to get back to work.
Yeah. So it's another period piece, and it's kind of like a medieval feminist horror. So it's kind of similar to Yellow Wallpaper, which is part of the reason why we chose Yellow Wallpaper, because even though the stories are so different, we're kind of going along with some similar themes. And so we're in the very beginning stages of that. And then I'm trying to convince Kevin, like I said, to write a more modern story. And hopefully that's something that we'll work on together. I really want to have it set up in the North Woods of Wisconsin, which is like a really beautiful, creepy, amazing area that I would love to film in. So I'm kind of trying to get started on that. So.
Oh, nice. And I guess the film, like, is there a website or social media that you guys use that people could follow if they want to kind of, stalk you?
Yeah, the website is yellowwallpaperfilm.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on, from there you can get to our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
And of course, thank you both very much. Sorry we had so many technical problems here, but it was very kind of you to take the time to speak with us.
There is one question I wanted to ask before you go. You changed the ending of the story, right?
Did
Slightly.
we?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
People
I
We
thought so,
listened
but
to
I
a
listened
lot
to
of-
an audio recording.
We looked into a lot of different interpretations, I guess, of the story. And we talked to a few people who work in the English department at Kevin's University. And, you know, one of the biggest challenges of doing the Yellow Wallpaper was we knew that we had this built-in audience, people who have read the story and people who love the story. And we knew that there was going to be this push and pull between staying completely true to the story and making our own adaptation that's its own work in itself. And so we talked about how we were going to do the ending for so long, and we edited it so many different ways. And I think the ending is the thing that we've gotten the most comments on so far, and it's mostly from people who have read the story. And the feedback has been like all over the place as far as that ending. And I think that's how we know that we made it the way that we wanted to make it, because of the different feedback we've been getting from everyone. And I think that's what we hoped would happen with that. Yeah. What do you think?
Okay. Well, I actually didn't. Well, I did in reverse. I mean, I'd watched the film and then I said, okay, before the interview, I'll read the story. And I found an audio version online, so I just listened to it, you know. And then at the end of it, that seems slightly different. But I mean, I love the way your film was on, you know, so that worked for me, too.
Thank you.
I mean, she's such a, you know, the whole thing is she's an unreliable narrator, you know, and it's like there's this, you know, and I think once we realized that we could have some fun with that, or not necessarily fun, but like interesting, you know, things we could do with that, it really opened up some possibilities. And, you know, because we don't, you know, all through the story, you don't really know, you know, how accurate she's seeing the world, you know, and you know, is she imagining all of this? You know, is there a baby ever? You know, so there's all these kind of questions that we had conversations about, like, well, you know, is the baby not there, you know, or did something happen to it, or, you know, so there's just all these possibilities that, you know, when you kind of disassociate or kind of pull it away from, you know, or start moving in a different way, you know, away from, you know, maybe the one reality into another, then there's just all these creative possibilities. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah,
so
thank you so much.
Nice meeting you, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you.